Ikea yuxatini yohan. Yata adat yitahutank yaidat. Well iyedi. Klingitewe ausaku. Be du gushtank tin. Echewa woos. Echewasa oti. Kashuk at tin away. Huchas uku. Adasa chewus klingit enach. Kakwashahit. Yes. Yeah, a kak like a kaguch shahid. A kaguch shahid. Yes. Yeah, Wash chay cooking out the yes. What just kunachwedu to us a go. Kashuk aayí tin. Pusuku. A chawe ye yawaka. Gulchi shak aayí. Yachana we Haa Atx. Haa Atx Daat Yéi Jiné. You do a sock we cook a Daat Yéi Jiné. Dasak ayus. We yek Wooch itri getank kayi shehit kliatke. Achter was a go ye yachokai. Kunachwe yek Daat Yéi Jiné ya gulchish. Itra gwaltu verbs da chadasa hatuiti. Gulchish yuhan. Ya yidet das die Tor gesse go yuchi watani linkit chenach ut. Chadusa du tuasuku. Okay. Maybe, let's see. For Thursday, just bring something to say. Something about your life, something about, whatever. Just bring something, just so that when I say, Adusa du tuasuku yuchi watani, or Gwati tuasuku yuchi watani, heshwasaku gwati. So the first one say, who wants to talk? And the second one says, if you want to talk, that will be fine. And then you would have something to say. Oh, I was waiting for you to ask that. Okay. What was I talking about at the beginning? Still recap.
I heard 4 days.
Yeah, on the fourth day. So on Thursday, we're going to get together on Zoom. Then I'll be back out at what else?
I heard how you say that in Tlingit, and then I got none of the rest of that sentence.
It's kind of fun. So I said, Daat Yéi. I was thinking about this one. Wash iyadi wooz. Heshke wasakwati kashuk aditin kukas uku. So maybe your child will ask you, is it okay if I play video games? Wahlingit ausaku iyadi. Wahlingit ausaku iyadi.
Is that if it's in Tlingit?
Wahlingit ausaku.
If they know Tlingit.
Yeah, maybe your child knows Tlingit. Tlingit yuchatangi tin. Oh, do in you. What'd you say? You gushi tunk. There it is. I'll give you that one. And maybe you text to them in Tlingit. Chadasach yawuz. Yéil iyagusaka. Chadasach yawuz. Let's
say anything.
So whatever you ask them, Yéil iyagusaka. They're gonna say to you, yes. What just has to tuasuku kashuk aditin pusuku. Well, in ʼatudli. Yes, ʼatudli. We gotta learn that one. ʼatudli is they lied. Maybe they lied. Just hasu tuasaku kashukati tinkusuku. Maybe they just want to play video games. And then, it's just because I had to run an errand real quick, and then I was at the place where I was running the errand, and I got a text like, "Can I have screen time now?" And I said, "Iglak hasake yan has jine nehi." Have your sisters finished their work in the home? And he wrote back, yes. And so I said, good. And I came home and one of the sisters hasn't done anything yet. So I don't think he checked. I think he was just like, yeah. But then I'm like, is he reading the Tlingit? Is he just like saying yeah? So it was fun little moments of parenthood. So no matter what language you're going to parent, you're going to run into probably a bunch of these similar things. All right. Anybody got any language thoughts that you want to share or questions?
Yeah, actually, because I had heard a story of a witch that would, or whenever you see it depicted, I've only ever seen one carving, but that's someone with their hair that ties their hands behind their back. That's something that witches do to bind your soul. And I was curious if shamans do that, or if that's because I just recently heard of a story of a shaman doing that, but someone said that it might be a mistake, and I was just curious if that was, or
Well,
if you know anything about that.
A lot of those carvings are in icht, torturing a naqt'ati. So usually,
okay.
Yeah, you have the naqt'ati, and then because they both do real similar things, right? They use some sort of spiritual energy, magic, and an icht does it to usually help people, and the naqt'ati does it to hurt people. And so usually you'd need an icht to counter a naqt'ati. And as far as what they did to them long time ago, I'm not too sure. But most of the carvings, they would show their hands are bound behind their back, and their hair is usually being pulled by the icht, which could be symbolic. They did kill them because you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to use spiritual energy to cause harm. And so usually the icht would usually take care of it, or the people would. And the icht would say, yeah, that's him right there. And so the only things that I heard, quite, a few things, like, so an icht is often selected by the spirit helpers, but sometimes someone could just sort of grow into that or be chosen by another icht. There was training involved, and that training usually involved fasting on a mountain, 4 days, 4 nights, and then some creature usually presents itself and falls down dead, and you cut out its tongue and put it in a bag, and it becomes your Yéil, your spirit helper, and you call on it for a ceremony. I think the icht, they never clean themselves that much, because spirits don't like the smell of people. And I think if they were clean all the time, that they would see and hear all kinds of stuff all the time. Because what I've learned is there's like a whole universe that most people just cannot see. And some people they could see things, hear things more than others. My grandma, sometimes she would say things like, be real careful, something bad's going to happen. And like someone would die that day. Like it was very consistent, I think, in the ways that she would see these things. And then but the icht could do a lot more than that. And they would usually be communicating with spirit helpers and with the spirits of things, the Kwani, the As Kwani, the Kushta Kwani, all of them. The land otter was probably the one they talked to the most. There was a very special relationship between the Kushta and the icht that I think is underexplored. A lot of people just think of it, Kushta as a bad guy or something scary. And it sure is, yeah. But it's more complicated than that, because they would help the people a lot. And then they would bathe themselves. They had special combs made out of bone, and they would comb their hair out, which was usually pretty close to probably dreadlocks, and they would bathe them, and they would cleanse themselves. And I heard if you peek through the sort of slots in the wood and looked at them, their hair would be kind of moving around and stuff. But if they could do something to a ʼatk, and then the ʼatk would start shaking uncontrollably. That's how they would sniff him out, right? And then they'd be like, rub him out, and and then they'd usually kill him because they're pretty dangerous. And so, yeah, that's all I know. I knew an elder who saw one, ʼatk. So I'll tell you. I'll tell it to you in Tlingit, then I'll tell you in English. Kushta shudu saga no achkak claim. De shuke kamtati dutla lukach ati hatsu lukach ati hatsati. De ish koa southern Tishoni. Chilkokas ti owe du ish una dutla aya kleinachwuti du in. One kanin slidzi aya just kleinacha shavat du yetitin. Telluna llea idchkoa du tlatsu du nakmugud. Tachlidzi aya has du kusti kohanti chag. Yewe lingit kusti kohanti kusitien yaachkak. Jan koa du tla aya hu owe uwasha we S'eek we wushkitan kusatien. Ja, hast du wushwut de shai itcha de club na klecheka du ish, ajekal klechkaden de tool an de in. Jan kwak eden au shaguk klingit. Tek de hin awe one kanins, just de kat ye chaya kosatinjen. Kosatin nujen. Ja, Kushta ko ish. Ak kwan anikak we nak daki hiti yich wan kanins hun daki hiti yich wan kanins wuching ejitune klek de hin awe jinda hakuk daki hiti yich echat wutien we asando saka Atx idu sak we shanach ak akaya echat wutien. Ho echosatin, ho, yek satin, each a clap away woosh with tustini, ayatling, get renach, woosh ʼatudli.átk. Aka away, ho, kliatika, a hundu a good. E awe kutlak, is a cookie, nacht ati. Chetaya. Which a get late renach, tek de hino echosatin. Yedakhat sati. Chatka Kushta Mark Jacobs Jr. Hatuwasagu Autotluni. But Nacho it's a tat. Kone Yende Wutusene Haa Yak the way to a chuck. Sheet Kakaya A and B ha Ikayak. Ayukaya Watua Wak she. Dachsak shawe. Shach you do a saga at way sha, yet look sha, ach you do a saga at dach away. On need, Jakut at the away. Has to Hende and the kin. Has to kina aya has ausatin. Ka away, ka. Yuka ud hu aya. Yatayacho yaw de hun. Yatayach yaw de hun. S'ach. Teas are Yáay Yada away, just at Kawaha, Asuyanach. Hasaka Kahik, Kachunach, a joy dachas wushi, a dachas lu guk neelte. Yal the Katastu aayí nachas lu guk. Hechasagu and Nachsawe, Katli Nachawi Kewatan, Gush Nacht a tea ach, a Kautachik Yesu. A Daat Yéi Jiné. Jinda hakuki klesh asa has awas kutlingit. Klesh asa achewa ach chaha yukatam. Jan pa we dech yukawatan. Is a kuke. Nakzate. Mukecha, klechach enachi ide kakwani. So there was I had an uncle here. His name was Kushta Bill Fawcett. And he's Tlukach Adi. He was born in Haines. His father was Southern Shoshone. And I used to see him around town, like speak Tlingit with him, see him at church, see him at the grocery store. His father was Southern Shoshone, and his father died before he was born. Before he was born. And then his mother remarried J.B. Fawcett. But then when he was real little, his mother died too. And there's some hard things about Tlingit life a long time ago. One of those things is it could be really difficult for a woman if the father of your child dies when the child is young. Sometimes that was difficult. It was more difficult if the mother died, but it could be difficult if the father died. But then not long after that, his mother died. And even though she had remarried, it wasn't really his dad, so he wasn't always the nicest to him. He was what he called kohanti, which is an orphan. And there are some things that I'm glad have changed about Tlingit culture, and one of them is that Tlingit people were pretty mean to orphans. It's pretty well documented. They weren't that nice. So he had it pretty rough, but he knew Tlingit really, really well. And I used to see him around. One time I saw him in the post office. And I said, "Hey, it's good to see you." I said it in Tlingit. We'd always speak Tlingit when we saw each other. And he came up to me and he whispered, he goes, "It's like, do you know ʼatudli.átk? I was like a witch, you know?" And then he told me this story. So here's how the story goes. He and Mark Jacobs were real young men going to go hunting. When he was that age, boys would go out hunting on their own, 10, 12 years old, jump in a boat, go. And they were packing things up down the beach from the A&B hall in S'eek, putting things in their boat. And it was real early in the morning. And all of a sudden they could hear a goose calling. And they're like, "Huh?" And they look up, and coming from Mount Edgecombe was a person floating in the air. And they had a button blanket like this, and they're peeking out from behind it. It's like to be peeking out from something, yeah. And it had a hat, like a cedar hat on. And it was making that noise, sounded like a Canadian goose, and it just floated past them up in the sky. He said they just ran home. They didn't even grab any of their gear or anything, just ran home. And it was a really interesting story to me. And there's two things I think are really interesting about this story. One is at some point as I was listening, I was enthralled. I was in. I was like, what? And then, but at some point I thought, why is he whispering? Because nobody understands us here. Like, no, the chances of someone walking by and understanding us is probably like 1% chance, right? So I was like, but then I thought, boy, maybe he's still scared of that ʼatudli.átk. And then the other thing, I guess, what was my other thought? I had a second. Oh, the other. I guess it'll come to me. I forget now. But it was just so incredible, like this story that he told. And oh, here's the other thing, is when I told someone about it, and I told them in English, I didn't believe it, right? Even though he told the story, and when he told it to me in Tlingit, I was like, oh man, that definitely happened. That happened. He saw it. They ran away. But as soon as I said it in English, there was like just a tiny bit of doubt. And I was like, huh, I should tell that story in Tlingit, I guess. So anyways, yeah, there's a lot out there, probably, well, not a whole lot, because people don't talk about it nowadays. It is a little bit sensitive. Is sensitive. There's quite a few elders I know who won't talk about it at all. Some of them would, like George Davis. He hung out with Marge Dudson a lot, and they were very religious people, and which is totally fine, because there's lots of religious people who are just wonderful Tlingit speakers. But some of them, there's certain things that they don't want to talk about, you know, and so they had told me some things that are Tlingit things that they thought were wrong. Like, okay, you know, that's cool. But anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to share that. Thoughts or questions?
Oh, good. Cheese for sharing.
Okay. Okay. Kids are doing their chores now. Where was all this chore happening? They want a screen time. Okay, whatever. Okay. I think we left off here. We only got 4 left. So don't be shy. I need reader number 1, reader number 2.
I'll go.
Cheesh.
I'll do that.
Okay, Gook.
Gusuwe kach.
Has
Daat Yéi Jiné.
has to has a case.
Has akwas qewu ge.
Look has a was
Cheesh. Okay. Translate it. Gusuwikong.
What are they doing?
Well, it's a gusu.
Where? Yeah.
What's called?
Is that like a men?
Yes. Where are those men? Gusuwikong. Ikuhas.
Could that be like at the beach? Like
Yes, at the beach. And so what this shows us is there's gusu questions all throughout. And if it's gusu, the answer should also have on it. And we see some ones that we don't see all the time. Like, because in beginning Tlingit, we see ya do, we do, you do, hey do, nehu, shkunu. But then you could say hin yigu, iku, right? And so you could see this on a bunch of different places, right? And so ik is down the beach, right? So this, you say ik if you are where?
inland?
Yes, you have to be upland from the beach in order to say that. So, and that's the ocean beach, right? That's the only ik, it's the only niche. You say niche when you're on the niche, otherwise you'll say ik if you're on the inland, yun if you're out on the sea. So it is one that has 3 different terms, which one you use depends on where you are. So they are on the beach. Daat Yéi Jiné.
What are they doing?
Yes. What are they doing? Right. And so you're gonna gusu we and Daat Yéi Jiné. You'll see this one throughout this whole document. And what about hastiqewu, hastaqis?
Qewu is net.
Mm-hmm.
A case. Just what's it called? A case.
Anybody got that one? Got a guess? In the perfective, it would be awaka. So let's go. Let's see. Let's go here. So we're going to look up ka. We're going to see what we could find. So I'll close ne. Go up. Here's ka. It's going to be this one. and it's gonna be this one. And it's right there.
They're mending nets.
Yes, they are mending. So this is not just sewing, this is also mending, right? And you could also, there's a verb for weaving, and that one would also work for this occasion. I think either one will work. A couple things to note is if a verb root ends with the double A, so if it's an verb, and you close it, it will usually change to an EI. It will almost always change to an EI. So then you'll see it there, awaka, akwaka, akaka, ukaich, it's a little different. Akini, right? So if you close it, and it's got to close usually with an S or an N, maybe a CH, but the CH sometimes will end up with the Y on there instead. The other thing to note is this S apostrophe. So this suffix means to do something in a repeating series, just like sewing, right? Stitch, 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 stitch. And so for this one, when it's in the imperfective, it likes to go akhes. They are doing that right now. But you have to remember that when it goes perfective, it's not going to be awakhes. It's going to be awaka. It's going to go back to the ka. Okay. Has akwasqewuge.
Asqewu is to fish with a net.
Yes.
With a net. Question. So are they, I guess, are they fishing with a net? Are they net fishing? Or let's see.
Yes, but there is this
As-
aqua part.
Oh, that's right. So are they going? Will in the future?
Yes. So this aqua is going to be future, right? And it won't always be aqua, but when you see that, or the K underline KWA, these are some futures, right? And we'll look at a future. What exactly does that look like? And then later we'll be like, what are all the pieces in there so I can make futures, right? So this one is, are they going to go seining? Or are they going to seine? Are they going to net fish? However you want to sort of translate that, the net fishing part.
So they're going seining or net fishing for coho.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Who's gonna go next? Need two readers.
I will.
Okay, Cook.
Gusu ihon kuhas.
ʼatudli.átk Daat Yéi Jiné.
Hasku kwa koke.
Haa Atx has kokwakuk.
Cheesh. Okay. Gusu ihun chuhas. Translate it.
Where are your older brothers?
Yes, and you should be a male identifying person if that's what you're being, or the person that you're asking should be male identifying. ʼatudli Daat Yéi Jiné.
Chot is halibut.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like halibut rope?
Mm-hmm. How do you think we would say that in English?
Halibut line?
Yeah, I could say halibut line. I think there's one other way you could say it.
Like a lure, jig.
Well, it's a set of them on a rope, right? So like you
Like a
said,
Oh.
long line.
long line or a skate. And so I've heard it. It's like a halibut skate. Right, you're gonna go set a skate. It's because it's what it is. There's a line here with usually like a bit of an anchor at the end, like a weight, and then every I don't know, like every fathom or so, there's gonna be a line tied to it with a hook on it, and so this is gonna be to catch multiple halibut at once. So this is how you would subsist fish for halibut. That's how I've seen it done. Then the other end, it goes to like another weight, and then there's a line that comes up, and then there's a buoy. And so then you go and you pull the buoy up, and usually you got to use, unless you're real tough like these guys, you're usually using a line puller of some kind. Then it's coming up, and then when you got one, then you sort of stop it, and then you deal with getting it in. And it depends on where you're at. If you're down on Prince of Wales, I know you're going to get lots of other things. You're going to get what in English I think is called a skate. It's like a little baby shark looking thing. Or no, it's like a little baby, looks like a little manta ray. Then you're going to get sun stars, which I think is called hintayishi. And you're going to get nak, and you're going to get tlek, you're going to get chak. So you are going to get octopus every now and then. You're going to get red snapper, and you're going to get halibut. Okay. Oh, Daat Yéi Jiné. Did we get that part?
Working on around, working on.
So this is one where this is technically around or about, but once you say Yéi Jiné, you switch it to on and you translate it to English. They're working on the halibut line.
They're gonna go fishing.
Yes, so that's what is technically asking.
Are they going to go boating or?
Yeah, are they by boat? Are they going to go boating? Like it's either one of those would work. Yes. Chachka haskakwakuch.
So they're going boating, fishing for halibut.
Yes. So this ka is used when you're going after that thing. And you could be going to the store. I'm going to the store to buy halibut. That ka would work. Or if I'm going out to get some, that ka would work. You don't need the ka if you're going to put a hunting or fishing verb right after it. So ʼatudli or a steich or a sqayu, whatever. You don't have to put the ka on there. But if there's like a straight motion verb here and then ka, that means you're going to get that thing. You're going after it. And this could also work for like, I'm gonna go get my brother. He's messing up. S'eek, do iqaq. Go drive after and go get my brother. Okay, need a one and a two. It hasn't gone yet.
I'll go.
Okay. Dísi.
I'll be too.
Good.
Gusu I sunny has.
Has du jagat has ukoch.
Age age has atlun. On to ge has atlun.
Okay. Okay. Gusu isanyahas.
Where's your paternal uncle?
Uncles.
Uncle.
So that's what the has does. Hastu yagu yikt haswukuch.
They went in the boat driving around.
Yeah, they went boating in their boat. That's what that sentence says. So it's, yeah, it's like Bodhi boat face. It's boating up. That's a very Bodhi sentence. So hastu yagu yikt haswu, right? Okay. So then I guess a couple of things. So yak goes to yagu, just keeping that in mind. Yikt would means in the boat. So yik is the boat. Yik is the boat sits in the water with yik. The people are in the boat with yik, and the people are in a car with yik, and the car is in the road with yik. Those are all yik type of motions or things. Sake has atun.
Are they going hunting for seals?
Yes. Are they hunting seals? Tansuke has atun.
Are they hunting sea lions too?
Yes. Yeah. Well. Okay. Okay. Last page of the book. Who wants to go?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Gook.
Gusto e ish.
Daat Yéi Jiné.
Gusto du katako.
Yáy.
Adu sa du eat wudishi.
Du Dutchan.
Okay. Sheesh. Okay. Usui ish.
Where's your dad?
So, Daat Yéi Jiné.
He's working on ta.
Yeah. Well,
Oh my gosh.
so this kata, this is an interesting interpretation. This is the one I would love to have a conversation with the author about if she was still around. So kata for most speakers is not what is in the picture. What is the picture anyway? Like again, a net, right?
A net filled with fish, I guess. I don't know.
So
I don't know.
maybe it's a like the things they have at the hatcheries.
Mm-hmm.
The little fish live inside of it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Because kata is usually something on the land. And it is something you use to get food, but not a lot of people use it anymore. And
Is that trapping?
yes, it's a trap. So usually it's a trap, like to go trapping. Like you could say, if you say Daat Yéi Jiné, most speakers nowadays will be like, oh, they're working on their traps, setting a trap line maybe. Right, so that's usually what kata is, but it looks kind of like a hatchery to me, perhaps. So that might be a neat term for it.
Well, I really doubt it, but it does look like it's on land. Maybe they figured out how to trap fish at high tide.
That could be. I do think there's a name for those because we were looking at a view the other day. So. Okay. Gusutu kotaku. Kotaku.
Where's the trap?
Yeah, where are his traps? Ik Yáay.
They are on the beach.
They are on the beach, and so this Yáay verb has two I think, two main meanings, right? Two functions. One is to wear something. So I could say, Yéil ʼatudli.átk, put your pants on, right? Or wear your pants, right? And then it could also mean to put something somewhere, right? It kind of depends. And in some cases, it could mean to just sort of be somewhere, which I think is how it's working here. Adusa to eat with the sheep.
Who
Who?
who is helping?
Yes. Who helped?
You. No. Him.
Him. And who's him?
The dad.
The dad, right? So who helped him? Adusa to eat with the sheep. And then do the chan.
His son?
Well, not his
Grandchildren?
Grandchild.
Oh, grandchildren. Okay.
So if I had this sentence and I took that out and I put it, I took this, put it there. Adu itsa wudishi. That says something different than adusa do eat wudishi.
Who helped?
So this says who helped him. What do you think this one says? We didn't add any pronouns. I think there's only one other way you could switch it.
Who is he helping?
Yes. Who did they help? Do itsa with the she, as opposed to adusa, do eat with the she. So when you're dealing with these things like eat or een, those go between the adu and the sa. Adu een sa good. Who did they go with? Which I think we saw earlier. We did the whole thing. Okay. Let's go back to this. We celebrate by getting a 10-minute grammar lesson. Okay. So we left off kind of looking through this thing, right? Getting these parts. Green is the preverb, blue is the object, red is the subject, purple is the classifier, brown is both the root and the stem, right? The root is the meaning, stem is what the vowel is doing, right? The meaning we just sort of keep in mind so we know what the verb means. The stem variation is what we use to predict what the stem is going to be. We can predict that vowel. We absolutely can. Okay. So I think we did this one. We did puati. Did we do this one? I don't remember. So here's one I think we did. So object, subject, classifier, khan, and it's always going to be short and high. So if we change this blue one, what are we changing in the verb? Yeah, who is being loved, right? That tells us who is being loved. If we change this one, the S, now what do we change? The red capital S.
The person or the one doing the loving.
Yeah, who's doing the loving, right? So it's important stuff, right? Then as we go through object, subject, classifier, verb root, this is a g verb. It's a state verb. It's transitive. And we're going to look through, like, especially this part and the state part. We're going to look at those and say, like, what does that mean? How do I use that information? Like, when you look at a verb theme, it does contain pretty much everything you need to use that verb. So what you do at this point is you start practicing how to change those parts. Whether you say like, let's change this one, let's change that one. Now let's start moving it into they came to love them, they didn't love them, they do love them, they don't love them, they will love them, they won't love them. Those are the 6 that can really get you talking. If you could do those, perfective, perfective, negative, imperfective, imperfective, negative, future, future, negative, you could do an awful lot of talking. And then what you do is you store this information in your mind. That is a g verb. And we will talk about why that part is important. That's a state verb. We'll talk about why that part is important. Then once you start getting that, then you start ingesting a bunch of verbs into your mind. And then it's a balancing act, I think, between understanding how the language works, filling your boxes full of stuff, and making it a language of use. Like that last part is the thing I think that glues it all together. Listen to it, speak it, listen to it, speak it. And then you also have to build a community and believe in yourself and stay strong, stay on the path. Okay. Ask questions if you got them. We're going to start looking at this stuff. So the first thing we're going to look at is verb type. So we've talked about this. There are 5 verb types: motion, act, event, state, position. Those are the 5, right? And so when you look at it, you just sort of say, okay, that's a state verb. I just got to keep that in mind. Oh yeah, that's a motion verb. I got to remember that. But then what does that mean? Like in terms of how you use it. So an act verb is for someone to do something, and it's usually to someone or something, right? They often have both objects and subjects. The important thing here is it does have an imperfective. So the imperfective is the term we use for like happening now. But this will be -I, which means the classifier has to be 0, sa, sha, or sha, or da, or s, or sh, or sh. Has to be one of those. It will not be +I in the imperfective if it's an act verb. An event verb is for something to happen. And the important thing with an event verb, once you see it has an event verb, there is no imperfective. Don't know it, getting to know it, know it. There's nothing in between that. So it's a kind of a time thing, I guess. It's like you can identify a point where it's like happening, right? Didn't happen, starting to happen, happened, right? So that's important, is there is no imperfective for all event verbs.
And what's an example of an event verb or a couple of event verbs? Just so I can't think of it like something that's
like you say ich setin, I see you. But in order to see you, I must have already seen you. So that's why that one is always a perfective verb. So I could say tatke ich setin, I saw you yesterday. Yidat ich setin, I see you right now. That one does not change. And this is why some people who came among us a long time ago got confused. They're like, oh, they don't even change their verbs for time. How simple. And it's like, no, that's not it. It's that time is not the driving element for our language. So took, it exploded. That's another good example. It didn't explode, then it exploded. There's no point where it's like, it's in some, there's no middle point.
There's no, it's currently exploding.
Mm-hmm. You might be able to do in the process of exploding. Like maybe like a giant atomic bomb or something. But even that, like that moment of exploding, it's like, it already happened. Right? That's how Tlingit looks at those things. But let's go look at, let's blow it up then. So here's the tuk verb. That's an event verb. Imperfective does not occur. Took, it exploded. Or it didn't. There's no point where it's doing that. Even if it's an atomic bomb, like that atomic bomb, it blew up. There was no point where it was doing that. It just, there's a before and after. So that's the big thing with, I think, with the event verb, is just remember there's a before and there's an after. That's all you really got. That's just how Tlingit looks at things. Let's see. I want to try to open. I don't know if this will open or not. But I do have, and I think I linked off to it on my computer, some things aren't fully. I think my computer updated and there's a couple of things that aren't working. So let me try to. Shucks, okay. I don't know if it's gonna work. Okay, forget it. Yeah, so it wouldn't be blowing up on social, it would have blown up on social media. It Facebook. It blew up on Facebook. Or it's gonna blow up. But it ain't blowing up right now. Okay, for a state verb, it's for something to be a certain way. There are a few surprises from my perspective. Like love is a state verb, which is interesting to me. Like it seems like it's an act verb, but it's a state verb. And so there's a whole bunch of these, like strong, sick, smelly, good, bad. Like those are all state verbs, right? So state verbs, they often use object pronouns, right? And so in English, you use subject pronouns, I think, with states. I, but you use am, right? I am good. I am this, right? Whereas Tlingit, you just say ʼatudli.átk, right? And that's a me. That translates to me, right? It does have an imperfective, and the imperfective is plus I. So just, that's the difference between an act and a state. They both have imperfectives for it to be that way, right? To be that way right now or to be happening right now. This one's minus I, this one's plus I. Yáay, tlitsin, chun. Right? A motion verb is for something to move. There's no imperfective for a motion verb. You use what we call progressive imperfective. Yánagut. They're in the process of walking. The other big thing with a motion verb is we're going to talk about the conjugation prefix next. 0, na, ga, and ka. For all the other verb types, once you see, like if you look this thing up, you say that's a na verb. It's na every time. It is always na. That does not change. And that helps you to predict how to use the verb in different ways. If we go back to this one, that's ga, and that will be ga every time. But for a motion verb, it could be any of those four. So it could be 0, na, ga, or ka. So for example, to walk, right? Woogoot is they went walking, right? So for the command form reveals what the conjugation prefix is. So if I say go over there, or let's start with this actually, come inside. How do you say come inside?
Milku.
Neishku, right? There's nothing before that verb, neishku. That tells you it's a 0 conjugation. And if you say go over there,
Way.
way
Waygu.
day,
Way day.
no,
Way day. Yan. Way day. Yan. Good. Or let's see.
well, that's they are going that way right now. But if you tell someone, you'd say way day nagu. So it's na, because that, and we'll get to why. The motion verbs are tricky, but also totally predictable. There's just a few more variables you got to sort of put in your brain. If you tell someone to walk, like get walking. Ya ga gu. So ga gu. And if you want to tell someone to like walk down there, you could say ga gu. Right? So it can have all four of those, which is different than the other verbs. And that's the one of the big things. I guess I'd have one other thing on here, which is the verb usually changes when it's plural. Right? And it does so in a couple of different ways, but we'll look at that later. Okay. The last one is a position verb, and these are the least common. There's not very many of these. It's for something to be positioned, usually at a certain place. It only occurs in the imperfective, and sometimes you can have a negative. So you say, hun, they're standing there. Ah, they're sitting there. Sha'ah, there's a building located there. So there's not very many of these. And then once you see one, you're like, okay, well, I can only use it that way. Right? So the big thing to remember about a position verb, if you have one, like hun, I'm standing. If you're going to try to use that for like yesterday I was standing, tomorrow I will stand, you're going to have to switch it to a different verb. Right? There's going to be one that's going to be the one for gidahan, which is not the same one with hun. They have the same verb root, but those are different verbs. So we'll get to all of that stuff, right? It's very abstract. But once you start sort of putting it in motion and seeing it, it does start to make sense. Any questions about these verb types? Okay, well, we better take 5, and then we'll come back and we'll do conjugation prefix. Okay, take 5. Okay. Here we go. Act, event, state, motion, position. That's the kind of thing where like you look at the verb and you're like, okay, it's one of those, done. And the biggest thing is like, is there an imperfective or not? That usually tends to be the biggest thing. This part, 0, na, ga, pa, has way more impact than everything. This will determine what might pop up right here. So if we sort of go back to this thing, like what are these things? What's the green? Anybody remember what the green is? What do we call it?
Prefix.
The preverb. The preverb. What about the blue?
Okay, now I'm gonna guess that one's the prefix.
No, well, these are all prefixes here. But what type is it? What goes in the blue spot?
Object.
Object. In the pink. We only did these once, so it's okay.
The one that has the meaning like sha and ka and so
Yes.
forth. Is that the one? I don't
Yes.
remember what it's called.
We call them thematic prefix. The gray.
Conjugation prefix.
Conjugation prefix. The red.
Is that
Subject.
Subject. Purple.
right before the verb? Is that a classifier?
Classifier. Brown. Two things.
Root.
Yes, the root and the stem. What is this? Mauve or something? These things are prefixes. This one, suffix. And this is a preverb, so this one is a
Post.
post verb, right? So when you have 0, na, ga, or ka. If one of those is going to pop up, will pop up right here. In the conjugation, you have the perfective marker, you have ga, you have a few different things in here. Basically, what Tlingit does is it will activate some things right here. And the combination of those things will tell you what the verb mode is, right? So for example, if you have yu, that's a perfective verb. It's a perfective verb. If you have ga, pa, in that order, that's a future every single time. And every single future verb must have ga, pa. So some of that stuff is determined by the conjugation type. So by activating different things in the conjugation, we will move the verb into a different mode. Future, perfective, command, prohibitive, right? And they all got these fancy names. We might have to unfancy the names someday, because one of them is called purposive. Anybody want to guess what that one is talking about?
Isn't it something simple like it's just not that thing?
No, well, it is something simple. It's so it could happen. That's all it is. And so we got to probably, one of the next big steps for Tlingit is probably finding some different names for some of these things. In Mohawk, they had linguistic terms and they just changed it. It's like, oh, it's the so it could happen one.
I like that better. I get the other ones all mixed up all the time as well. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but I don't know about that.
So perfective is like did or didn't happen. Imperfective is happening. Progressive imperfective in the process of happening. Command is the do it or be that way. I mean, I guess the big thing is you generally have two types of verbs, right? Which is like happened, well, I happened, became that way, you know, did it. I don't know. I'll think about it. Okay. 0, na, ga, ka. Those are your four options. Everything that's not a motion verb is assigned to one of these. So if it says na, that is na every single time. That verb will always be na conjugation. And I go back and forth. I call it conjugation type. And I also say conjugation class. I'll try to say type. Then when we talk about the conjugation prefix, we're talking about right in here, you could have na, ga, or 0, na, ga, or ka. So each of these does have a bit of meaning attached to it. So 0 verbs, they tend to call them telic, which means it has some sort of end point or some sort of goal, right? When you say neich uwagut, they came into the house, like it happened, it had a finish point. And so for all these zeros, the one thing you got to remember, well, so we have these progressive imperfectives, ya nagut, ya anaskoin, right? And you're gonna see them. They have ya and na in them. And so, this one will have ya. Na means it's ongoing. There's no specified ending for it, right? And that doesn't mean like that meaning is locked into the verb. It just means it's generally associated with these. There's these 4 types of things in Tlingit Tundatani. The progressive imperfective for this one is also ya. Ga is upwards, ka is downwards. So for Tlingit verbs, those are your 4 sort of general types of things. Is it something that has an end point? Does it have no specified end? Is it upwards or is it downwards? And for Tlingit, it's going to be one of these 4, and it's not always going to be clear. For example, to catch something, you would say kashat. To grab on and to hold something, you'd say kashat. So one is upwards and one is downwards. Don't really know why. Maybe you got to hold it down. I don't know. But when it comes to ga, the progressive imperfective will now be k. Yanagut, they're walking. K undergun. It's starting to sunshine. Or sorry, ye undergun. K nakain. It's getting better. There's a ta is downwards. And so that one will have yay for a progressive imperfective. Yay undergun. It's starting to sunshine. For futures, every ga conjugation verb must have k in front of it. Ke kwak a, it'll be good. Ke guchtlitzin, it's gonna get strong. Ke guchtlichun, it's gonna stink. All of those ga, well, they must have k in front of it. And it's something you'll have to remember. Ke kwashat, I'll grab it. I'll catch it. All the qa verbs must have ye in the future. That is why you say tsu ye ik kwasatin. It's because that is a qa verb. And so these are just interesting things. These are all parts of the Tlingit verb. As you start to learn more verbs, like to really use them, you have to kind of remember this stuff. This one is more important than the other one in terms of just being able to use it, because then you'll know how to have a command for it, right? Gedahan, panu, nata, cha, right? It reveals itself in the command, but it will pop up. So if you want to use a hortative verb, those will get activated, right? So you'll say, eat hadashi, let me help you. That's a 0. If you say, wait nach tu art, that's na. If you said, I can't think of akashat, let me catch it. I guess you could say that. That's ga. And then akashat, let me hold on to it. Any questions about that? I mean, we'll look at them in action. Like, I think just do snapshots of this stuff, then we'll go back to the stories, and it'll start to reveal itself. You'll see it. But when we start learning how to put these verb modes together, like how do you use a perfective verb? Once you see a verb, can you put it into the perfective and then change it for all those different you, me, them, all that stuff? Okay. So here's some examples, right? So this is a 0 verb. In the progressive imperfective, you'd say ya anaskoing. They're getting to know him. In the future, you'd say akuchsaku. They're gonna know it. And I guess we'll throw one more in here just for fun. Perfective. Ausaku. They know it. Here's a na verb. Yakanadain. It's starting to flow. Kakkoda. It will flow. And then you'd have kawada. It flowed. And here's something for these perfectives, right? The 0s tend to be high in the perfective. Everything else tends to be low. Kenakain, it's getting better. Hekwak-a, it will be good. Wook-a, it was good. Ye undagan, it's starting to sunshine. Ye aguchtagan, it will be sunny. Ow de gone. It was sunny. It is sunny. So this is just looking at them in action. This is what they do, is what they look like. Ya, ke, yay. Nothing, ke, yay. And when I say nothing, I'm talking about the preverb, right? there's a lot of people, once they start using futures, they'll just throw K in front of stuff at random. Because like sometimes I hear K, so I'll just say K every now and then, right? I hear it all the time. But it's just totally, it's predicted by this. So when you look at something, like when you look at a verb, like, okay, it does have an object. It doesn't have a subject. I can't add it. I can't take the object away. It's not. I have to remember that. Because I might say it's always that way. And then I'll have to say, Yéil na teach, because the na is right there. Right there. Yéil qati, let it be that way, because the na is right there. Yéil inati, you be that way, because the na is right there. Okay. Oh, I already had it. So here's state verbs: imperfective, perfective, future. Here's what it looks like. It's not color coded. Gotta update this, I guess. But that's what you train your brain to do. And this is different. It's a different form of language learning, right? There was a lot of say it, repeat it, fill in the blank, fill in the blank. But you can only memorize so much. You cannot memorize Lingi. It's too complex. There's too much stuff there. But you can learn how to use these things. Like I know people who have learned this process, and I know some people don't like it. They're like, it's too technical. You're making it too complicated. No, the language is complicated. We're giving folks the roadmap, right? This is the map, but there's roads all over the place. So here you got Yáay, Wooch, Kekwak. Here's another one. So this one, if it's got that little cross, I mean, it's going to be G all the time. Well, this should be Kushta, Kaushaji, Kekushtaji. Looks terrible, looked terrible, will look terrible. Here's a little insider tip. You can change the ka in here to ya, and you've got a hideous face. Yaushaji, right there. The Yushaji, Yaushaji, Keyagushtaji. It's just a yucky face. So here's Tusha'an, right? Tusha'an, Tusha'an, Ketugusha'an. They will be kind, they were kind, they are kind. I think that's the same thing. Okay. So now let's start thinking about these verbs and how they change, right? So without, I could tell you what these are. This is imperfective, negative imperfective, perfective, future, hortative, command, right? So this is all the same yati verb, right? Going back, this one right here, yay, object, 0, t. Little h, little 1, na, conjugation. So coming down, oops, we've got yéyati, kashye uti, yewuti, yeqati, yenqati, yeinati. That is all the same verb. Switching modes. Yati, uti, wuti, kukwati, nqati, inati. And so as far as what are those parts? You have a 0 object, ya, t. You have a 0 object, This letter U pops up when there's some separation from reality. Isn't that way? Or comparing two things, future, because it's not, it's just saying like there's something breaking from reality in terms of like it not really being that way or being that thing. The parts in the prefix here, 0 object, perfective marker, ya classifier. You plus ya equals woo. That's how it works. Here you've got 0, ga, ga. That's in every single future verb. Every single future verb has to have these 3 things. It's like you got to turn them on in order to have a future verb. And if you turn those on, you have a future verb. And then this will be a 0 classifier. 0 object, na conjugation, This one, which is the same one as right here, we call it mode. So it pops up, it's separate from the conjugation, because you can have both of them. You could say like Cyril George, he said let shingit exist forever. This one you have so that's the object, second person object, you, na, zero classifier, in a t. The other thing we look at here, t, 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 all predictable, except for maybe these two, which don't worry about. Okay. So, but once we learn like this yati verb, there's like 30 different verbs we can build out of yati. Yati, tesh ute, yewuti, or wuti, kukwati, nakati, inati. So some of the things that we could do is we could say, if we put uk in front of it, to be somewhere, which it could also, we could have a place in there, hunag, in huna, kichchan, in ketchikan, ich, in cake, shkakwe, in skagwe. Uk-yeti, it is there. Kesh uk-e-uti, it's not there. Uk-e-wuti, it was there. Uk-e-kwati, it will be there. Uk-e-nkati, let it be there. Uk-e-inati, be there. We've got tsu, which if you're from the inland, you would say tsum, and it would be blue. So I should have picked a different color. Tsu-yachyeti, it is green. Tesh tsu-yach-uti, it's not green. Tsu-yach-wuti, it became green, or it was green. Tsu-yach-kukati, it will be green. Tsu-yach-nakati, let it be green. Tsu-yach-inati, you be green. Incredible Hulk. But if we look at this, yati, uti, wuti, kukati, nakati, inati. Same here. There is a couple that's different. This one is kukwati and nkati. Why do you think those two would be different here than here? Kukati, nakati. Kukwati, nkati. Why would it be different? Because there's a vowel before it. This vowel will trigger that contraction. So this is the full form, kukati, nakati. This is the contracted form, kukwati, nkati. To need something, right? Like it's, so in beginning Tlingit, you learn this. Hina tina chatiti, atcha etina chatiti, dana etina chatiti, right? But now you could say, and this is for a third person, hin etinachyati, they need water. Kashin etinach uti, they don't need water. Hin etinachwuti, they needed water. Hin etinachkukati, they will need water. Hin etinachnakati, don't know why it's that, but let them need water. Hin etinach inati, also, don't know why I'd say, but you could. Oh, I see in the chat. Okay, so we got to do the Kermit the Frog thing. Hold on, I gotta switch to a document. Okay. So for Tlingit though, you would say that's easy, right? Kesh uchzi, which is funny because what does that literally mean? Anybody know?
It's not difficult.
Not difficult, right? I think it's fitting for Tlingit. Like, oh, that's not difficult. That's how we say easy, right? So then you could, to go negative, like, so that is a negative in English. It's not easy. For Tlingit, you would say it's difficult. And then I guess to be green, Shidzi, Su, Yach. I would probably say Puti. It's difficult for a person to be green, even though he's a frog. He could still be a person. We'll let him use a fourth person object because he talks. I don't know, and he plays a guitar. It's not a typical frog.
Banjo.
Oh, banjo. Sorry, Kermit. Okay, couple more. Weather. Yaquati. The weather is that way. Kashiyaquti. The weather isn't that way. Yaquati. The weather was that way. Yaquati. The weather will be that way. Yakunqati. Let the weather be that way. Kashiyaquati. The weather won't be that way. I couldn't do a command here because you can't do an object-based command. You can't do a command if there's no subject or object in the verb. And then last one. So we're switching from yati to siti. But if you look, the classifier changes, the rest of the verb stays the same, right? I'll put these up. I'll put this whole slideshow up. You can look at it. And we're going to go through and we'll do this we'll pick this back up on Thursday. We're probably maxing out on grammar stuff. Naqsati, it is medicine. Keshnaqusti, it's not medicine. Naqusati, it became medicine. Naqusati, it will be medicine. Naqnaxati, let it be medicine. Naqinasti, you be medicine. Again, I don't know how I'd say it, but Teichnachsati, that's what Raven used to say. Let it be stone, and then it would turn to stone. Okay. Any questions? That was a lot.
It seems like sometimes the perfective verb, it means that it was that way, but other times it seems like it's like it became that way.
Yeah.
And can you tell us more?
Yeah, because for some of in English, sometimes you'll say it was that way, or I knew it, right? But for Tlingit, there's sometimes when you want to communicate that same thing where you'd say used to be, but not anymore. So then sometimes you have to differentiate between that, because you could say, oops, I don't know why there's a parrot there. Okay, you could say, naqusati, right? It became medicine. It could also be used to mean it was medicine. That's fine. But sometimes for Tlingit, if you need to say it was, but it isn't now, you'd say naqusatiyin. So then you throw the decessive on there, right? So it would look a lot like a negative, like keshnaqusati. Or it should be keshnaqusati. It wasn't medicine. But then to say it used to, but it isn't anymore. So these are things, and it gets a little interesting because if you said they used to belong to this clan, but not anymore, I would assume they're deceased if you said it that way. Kakwantan Husatian. No, you should say Wustian. Sorry.
Wouldn't they still be a part of that clan though, even if they passed away?
Yeah.
Okay.
But sometimes people use those things to say, I know an elder and she used to say, Ach ish yi. He used to be my father. I mean, he's still her father, but sometimes people want to let you know that that person is gone now. And the decessive, using a decessive like that would instantly, I mean, someone could get kicked out of a clan. I'm sure it has happened. And I'm sure some people deserve it. But, but in that case, you would also use that. But I think once I heard that, I would assume that person is deceased. And talking about people being deceased is so sensitive in Tlingit that a lot of times you'll talk about it like that, because it's just, you know, there's a very direct way to say like wuna, they died, but it's usually you're going to say they walked away from us, or they're gone now, or you know, something like that. Kushta.
So how would you talk about then when a clan branches off? So like the Tiaton used to be Kiksadi.
Yeah, so you could use that Wustian, right? So like, let's switch to the document. So when we talk about this, so there's a couple ways I've heard this. So you could say, you could say something like, Tashqidi, you Hadusagan, right? So we used to be called Tashqidi. Or you could say, Tashqidi, Ha Wustian, right? So we used to be Tashqidi, right? And then you can also do something like this, right? So this is used to be called, we used to be, and then you could say, coming back to, you could just copy and paste this one. We were Tashqidi at that time. And then you could say, usually I think it's a Haa Atx. And this means like, this is how you talk about branching off from them, right? And so these come down to sometimes these motion verbs, which we'll start getting into motion verbs. We're sort of walking in, we're getting into verbs. And so it's like, look at this thing, look at that thing, look at this thing. But we got to hold motion verbs off, because motion verbs are like, I could be all the things, let me show you. And they're like, no, you're too much, you're too much. You stay backstage for a little while because you'll scare the people. But this is usually how you would say stuff like that. You could say, Hadusag and touch, you know, so you could say like, we were called Tashqidi, or we used to be Tashqidi, or we were Tashqidi at that time. And then you'd say, like we migrated off from there, we split off from there. Or you could sometimes say, like, so that's another way you could say it. So what would that one be talking about? What do you think? And just before we start guessing, this verb right here is talking about we're migrating and we're never coming back, right? So when you say migrating, there's kind of 3 different ways to talk about it. We're going to go over here and we'll be back. We're going to go over here, we don't know where we're going. And we're going over here and we're never coming back. This is like and so, but it's not always like a big breakup, because sometimes clans do have like this some big fight and they're like, Nana'i, we're out, we'll never be with you guys again, right? And then you could have something like that. But what would this be talking about? What's whoosh?
Together?
Yeah. So what, and what's dach?
From.
So what, then what would whoosh dach be?
Like together we're from?
From together. So it's like we separated from each other, these groups of people. So this is where you can sort of, and then sometimes when you're talking about these clans, you say that clan they stayed the same and then we separated. But then you could also have these moments too where tashqidi, you know, maybe, or some other clan, maybe it's like we used to be, what's it called? Oh, okay. So let's say you had one, like, especially if you have a name that's not really used anymore. Like we used to be called this thing, but then we got here and we separated and we became this and they become that. Right? So sometimes you have a situation like that. Okay, good question. Okay. So for the last 20 minutes, I'd like us to each read a sentence and then just, we have the translation right there. So some of the things that I'm thinking about is like, do we know all of the parts? Do we recognize these things? We've studied a whole bunch of stuff here. So now when we go into a story, we should be able to start seeing those things. And we can start pointing out like, oh, like there's this verb is like that thing. And that's a motion verb or whatever. So let's just go one sentence at a time. Who would like to read the first one?
S'eek yati away.
Oh, to the sentence, to the period.
Yáay away at the
Okay. What are some, do you see everything that's in there? Any questions about anything? Anything you want to point out that we've just been talking about? How many verbs are there?
Two?
Yes. Yeti and wugut. So I think it has a number of ways to start a story. You could say tledihin or tledihin, which would be once, and roughly would translate to one time. There was one of them. That's what that says. So you could say they have one foot, right? Cake, three-legged dog, right? So yati the one that is being, the one that is one, right? And so Yéil ʼatwugut means they walked around, which is a na conjugation motion verb. Okay, let's read the next one.
Owe Owe Yáay.
Sheesh. Ausatin. Yáay. How many verbs?
One.
One.
S'eek.
Right? Take ausatin. They saw it. This is an event verb. That means you could say it for right now, or you could say it for in the past. It's going to be in the perfective, which is why that W is there. Ausit. That tells you that's a perfective verb. So you can say chosatin, you can say yisatin, yisatin, ausatin, hasausatin, wududzatin. It's all the ways you could change the subject for that verb, and you learn how to do that. The other thing I think it does is like once we see Yéil up here, we could assume Raven does all the verbs unless they tell us otherwise. So it doesn't need to have Raven in that sentence at all. It's already like front loaded in our brain. Next sentence. Somebody read it.
Hinach ke aklapes Yáay.
Sheesh. How many verbs?
One.
One, right? And so K complicated. And what this particular CH is telling you is it's happening on a regular basis. It just keep, there's a regular basis one, like to say, they talk, they eat, they do, like they just do these things regularly. Doesn't mean, there's another one that means like every single time or all the time, but that's not this one. And this is a motion verb, I think, which means to chase multiple things. If you're chasing a single thing, that's different than chasing multiple things. So it'd be aayí sanak. And then it gives you a direction right before. He nach, through the water. You yao. And so this is interesting too, because there's Raven, there's the whale. The whale is doing the chasing. Okay, next. Somebody read it?
I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Awe wa satsudu great agasne weyao.
Jeesh.
Just
Okay, so how many verbs are in there?
I just see agasne and the two in my head that translates to again.
Mm-hmm.
Again is, to his mouth, taste the whale. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a story, and so a story from a master storyteller is going to have some things that are just taking a big bite of the grammar. And so here we have chawasatsu, which would be what else, or how else, like technically this would be, and however else, and then duqait akasne weyao. So this is the verb. It is a carrying verb or a handling verb, which would mean to bring multiple things, and in this case, to the mouth, right? And so what else could he do to put some herring to his own mouth? Is really what it's saying, right? And this is what we call, this is a hortative form, which pops up, and it usually means let them do it, let me do it, let it happen. You are going to see it in stories. And in this case, it's like, what could he do so that he could get a taste of that, right? It's complicated in terms of how it works. And so sometimes we'll see things like this and say, ooh, that's a nice tasty chunk of a sentence. We'll learn about all those different parts later. Next sentence.
Wa nani soe ye tu dishat.
Sheesh. How many verbs?
Lech.
Yéil. Do we know what this one nanisawe is? Have we talked about that? So in the process of storytelling, right? So we're trying to frame, give you folks some ways to frame a story, right? So we could see at the beginning, like there's a few different ways you can start a story, right? One time, once, one day. And this is how you do a time jump in a story. And when you say one nanisawe, it means at some point. So we're jumping forward in the narrative. That's what this one does. Yetu dishat. This verb root means to grab something, right? Or to catch it. So when you say yetu dishat, it means to suddenly have an idea, right? That's really what it means, right? And you can have, if you put kuch in front of it, it means to change your mind, like kind of quickly. But when you say tu dishat, it's like it grabbed your brain, it grabbed you inside, like an idea, right? Like, oh, I got it. Okay. Let me read this one.
Dak ʼatk.
Okay. How many verbs?
Just one.
Just one. What is the dak part doing? It's usually meaning like out in the open. So it's an interesting way to say it. And then is also so I guess a couple things when we're looking at Raven stories, which is very fun, I think. But when Raven starts thinking or talking, we have to kind of keep in mind nobody talks like Raven. Raven is the most complicated talker of all time. And so shkeh is like, let me think about it, or like, kind of like, I'm gonna fly out to that area. It's kind of what he's saying. I'm gonna fly out to that area. So it is a future verb. I am going to fly. It has k in front of it, which is a little unusual. It has dak in front of that, which is also kind of unusual. Like, let me fly out into that open space. Okay. This one.
Tle we ya aayí ʼatudli awe chatsu du yikde quadakin.
Sheesh. How many verbs?
One in each line.
Yeah. Right? What? So keep an eye out for tle. Does anybody know what tle generally does?
Is that like saying then, like what happened next?
Yes. So it's then. And sometimes you'll have multiple tle in a sentence, which I think is really pushing things like then this, then that, then that. Like, so really pushing things together in terms of being sequential a bit. So then those herring, aayí is below its mouth. ʼatudli is to open the mouth up wide. Chatsu. So chatsu. Oh, that should be a high tone. Chatsu. Du yikde quadakin. So there's a future verb. I'm gonna fly. And then this is also interesting. If you've ever wondered in Tlingit how you would get inside of a whale, what directional would I use? It's yik. And yik would also be inside of a person. Like if it's not going to be tu is in your mind, but yik is in your body for whatever reason. We're going to read this one.
Yéil ta'a yaquak ya yao ha.
Sheesh. How many verbs?
I want to say 2.
Yes, Yéil. Okay. Yéil ta'a yaquak ya yao ha. Again, coming back to stories, it does get complicated, right? So maybe next week we'll look at a more bite-sized story. We'll see. Y'all are ready, even if you're seeing stuff that's complicated. Yéil, that's how. So if you just said yéil on its own, it's usually like that's how it is. But yéil something, that is how verb, right? Sa is like first of all, right? So it's kind of putting things in an order. So here you have a future verb. Anybody know what this one is saying? Yaqudlaq.
Something about winning, so they will win or they will like something like that.
Yeah. They so yeah, yaqudlaq is I will win, I will succeed, I will obtain it, or I will defeat a single third person. It could be any of those things. We usually pull it from context. And then here we have an object pronoun that maybe we haven't looked at yet. So it's like when we start learning pronouns, sometimes we're like, here's the pronouns. But then as teachers, we're not showing you all of the pronouns because we're like, there's more, but don't worry about it. So this is one of those, and it means some of them. So when you say ʼaayí, it usually means I'm going to get some of them, right? And then Yáay wuscha. Wuscha is to eat something in several bites. So in this case, it's interesting because it's got a third person. So the verb is actually, I think, turning into a noun, right? And so it's saying, that is how I will first obtain some of them for eating.
Did you say tsa is first?
Yes. Okay. And so depending, you say aqa awetsa, and then the first thing. And so sometimes you use it when you're doing sequences of verbs, like this verb first, and then this other one can happen, right? So it's like, well, I'm going to go out there first so I can get it. Okay. One more, maybe two more. This is probably the last one.
Away tre adach wudakin tre kunach. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
I see. Never mind.
Should have hit the enter key right there. Okay.
Right.
Away adak with the kin. So dak again is going out there, out into the open. This is something I think it does a lot. In this case, this is saying that place. There, right? So then there, out to the open, he flew. Right. So like, just in terms of like where you folks are at, and you know, we're all at like varying levels, but this is all intermediate Tlingit stuff. It's a lot more than just like reading a story and looking at the translation, listening to a story, looking at the translation. Now we're looking at everything and saying, let's look at how everything works. And even if there's a bunch of stuff that we don't understand yet, there's gonna be a whole bunch of stuff we do. That's a future, that's a future. That's a perfective, right? And right now we're kind of focusing on spotting them, recognizing them. Then we're gonna start learning how to put them together. And you're gonna get to a point where I could show you any verb theme, and you could do perfective and future, just like that. You go, okay, I could do that. And I could change it for person. So you did it, we did it, y'all did it, they all did it. You'd be able to do all that stuff, right? But it does take like, you're putting this stuff into your brain, which does take a lot of energy and work to burn these new pathways, because especially like Tlingit, it thinks about things differently. It just does. You know, oh, that's a yik thing. That's a tu thing. That's a ka thing, right? And so some of it's like that, and some of it's also like, yeah, that's just how the verbs got to work for that case. But Achish, Johan, any last thoughts or questions before we go? Okay. Okay. You wish Achish.
Something really quick. After once everyone says goodbye. I don't even know how I would manage to make time to come see you when you're back in office. I really wanted to meet with you and just go over the glossing. I mean, the terms and some of the common terms that we'll be using. But See Alaska wants us to start transcribing, and also wants us to meet for a welcoming meeting to Anna Clock and the program that we'll be using and stuff. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. I wanted to meet with you, but my schedule is so packed. I don't know if and when I can.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you a heads up. That's something I was wanting to do.
Okay, I'll send you an email with some times. That'll work for me. And we'll just figure
Okay.
it. Okay.
All right. I'll
Okay.
see you later. Sheesh.